In 1982, 3 researchers published a book, backed by coded parchments, historical documents, and a decades-long investigation. Their theory? Jesus left behind a bloodline, and the church did everything it could to bury the truth. The trail didn't begin in a cathedral. It started in a bookstore. In 1969, a BBC writer named Henry Lincoln was on vacation in southern France when he picked up a strange little novel, Le Trésor Maudit, The Accursed Treasure. Inside, Lincoln noticed something unusual: real historical diagrams and references to parchments supposedly discovered by a priest in the 1890s. These weren't just plot devices. They were based on scrolls filed in the French National Library. Cryptic records tied to a village no one had heard of, Rennes-le-Château. Lincoln thought he'd stumbled into a historical curiosity. Instead, he had found the first clue to a secret buried for centuries, one that would lead to coded messages, missing tombs, and the unthinkable possibility that Jesus of Nazareth had lived. The trail led to a hilltop village in southern France. In 1885, a village priest named Béranger Saunière was given charge of a crumbling rural church. He had nothing to his name, but in 1891, something changed. During renovations, Saunière reportedly discovered ancient scrolls hidden inside a hollow pillar near the altar. What they contained, no one knows for sure. But soon after, he traveled to Paris and returned, transformed. Over the next few years, he began pouring wealth into the village, restoring the church, building a manor, a library, and a tower he called Magdala. Local records show he was spending far more than any rural priest should have had. And yet, the church never exposed him. They quietly reassigned him and said nothing. Why the silence? What could he have discovered? According to the 1982 investigation, the scrolls hinted at a hidden bloodline and a heresy that could dismantle Christian doctrine. Crucifixion was meant to be slow, a death that took days, not hours. But the Gospels say Jesus lasted only 6 hours. Even Pilate was surprised. Then something unusual. His body wasn't discarded like a criminal's. It was handed over quietly to 2 secret followers. One of them brought aloes and myrrh, not just for burial, but for healing. Holy blood, Holy Grail asks a dangerous question. What if Jesus didn't die on the cross? What if the crucifixion was staged, a political ritual meant to satisfy the crowd while preserving his life? There are early Christian texts that suggest just that. Accounts of a Jesus who survives, who continues teaching, whose story ends not in death, but in exile. And in the legends of southern France, a small boat comes ashore without fanfare, carrying a woman named Mary, and a man who healed others, spoke softly, and was never seen again. She was there at the crucifixion. She was the first to witness the resurrection, and yet, history nearly erased her. Mary Magdalene, in early Christian texts excluded from the Bible. She's not just a follower. She's the one Jesus trusted most. In the Gospel of Mary, Peter challenges her, angry that Jesus shared teachings with her that he withheld from the others. It reveals a deeper rift between apostolic authority and a more intimate connection. Some believe she wasn't just a disciple, she was his wife. In first century Judaism, a rabbi was expected to marry. Celibacy wasn't holy, it was unusual, and if Jesus and Mary had children, That bloodline wouldn't just be sacred, it would be explosive. A lineage passed in secret, hidden from power, and threatening everything the institutional church was built to control. For centuries, the Holy Grail was imagined as a cup, the vessel that caught Christ's blood at the crucifixion. But what if that was never the real meaning? The old French term was sang rail, not Holy Grail, but royal blood. Not a relic, a bloodline. It wasn't legend, it was lineage. If Jesus and Mary left descendants, their bloodline would carry divine significance, not granted by a church, but born through flesh and inheritance. Grail legends speak of guardians, secret protectors, dynasties buried in European history. Some researchers claim this bloodline merged with noble houses, reaching the Merovingian kings of France, and later into secret societies sworn to protect it. Not myth, not metaphor, a legacy hidden in plain sight, behind the symbol of a cup. If the bloodline of Jesus truly survived, someone had to protect it. That's where the trail turned secretive. In the 1950s, a set of mysterious parchments surfaced in France. They referenced a secretive organization known as the Priory of Sion, said to have existed for centuries, guarding the bloodline of Christ. The documents named real historical figures as Grand Masters: Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, Victor Hugo. Whether the priory was genuinely ancient or partially reconstructed in modern times, the message was clear. The truth about Jesus wasn't destroyed, it was hidden. The priory was said to operate from the shadows, protecting descendants, preserving forbidden knowledge, and some believe it wasn't working alone. The Knights Templar, disbanded and persecuted in the 14th century, may have shared the same mission, guarding a legacy the church wanted erased. Not just relics, not just treasure, but a bloodline that could rewrite the history of Christianity. It all leads back to one place, a hilltop village in southern France, Rennes-le-Château. Whatever Saunière found here, he never explained. But what he left behind tells its own story. The church was rebuilt, but filled with strange clues. An inscription above the entrance reads, "This place is terrible." A demon crouches beside the holy water. Biblical scenes are reversed, and the entire layout seems designed to conceal something. Investigators believe Saunière may have uncovered more than documents, possibly a tomb or a lineage buried beneath the estate. Some say the chambers were sealed, others destroyed. There were whispers of a church cover-up, materials transferred, records vanished, witnesses silenced. But not everything disappeared. Fragments survived. Scrolls, symbols, inscriptions, just enough to follow a thread. And that thread leads here, not to buried treasure, but to a secret the church couldn't allow to resurface. If Jesus left behind a bloodline, if Mary Magdalene was more than a witness, then everything changes. Jesus becomes a man with a family, not just a divine savior. Salvation becomes something inherited, not administered. And spiritual authority no longer flows through apostles, but through a line the church couldn't command. That was the threat, not just to doctrine, but to power. A church built on celibacy, sacrifice, and obedience couldn't coexist with a Christ rooted in blood, legacy, and living heirs. So, the texts were banned, the women erased, the message rewritten, not because it was false, but because it was uncontrollable. If even part of this is true, then the story we've told for 2,000 years isn't wrong, just unfinished. A man may have survived, A woman may have carried his legacy, and a church, built on silence, may have buried the rest. But some truths don't stay buried. The clues remain in banned texts, coded parchments, and forgotten villages. Not to destroy belief, but to ask a deeper question. What if truth isn't found in authority, but in what was left behind?